Welcome guys, this is your friend Naruto Addict 3.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto was trapped in an onsen with Tsunade, Shizune and Anko? Part 2. Let's start this fanfic. What if Naruto was trapped in an onsen with Tsunade, Shizune and Anko? Part 2. Will be sealed with you. He said, producing a scroll, and infusing it with chakra so it would enlarge, but I will not be leaving you all here to rot. Naruto, you two hurry up and get the children. Right. Forming his favorite hand seal, Kage Bushin no Jutsu. 5 more Narutos popped into existence. Wait for me. Tsuyu yelled, then performed the same seal, leading to 4 Bushins. Jiraiya smiled, impressed by her progress. Those are special ones you have there, Akira said, and what's more, he chuckled, they make a nice pair. They do, don't they? Jiraiya smirked, she's got the same temper Kushina did when she was that age. Ack, get the hell off me you damned brat. Tsuyu yelled, I'm not a horse. Naruto had to bite back a laugh as Tsuyu turned out to be popular with children when 2 or 3 start clinging to her. Nei-chan, I want my ka-san. Whined a little boy. We're taking you to them now, Naruto assured them all, then you'll be taking you a new home, with nice people to help you. No more bad stuff, a little girl that had taken a liking to him asked. Naruto nodded, hi, no more bad stuff. Oi, what's going on out there? A boy's voice yelled, Orochimaru, is that you? Nope, Naruto yelled, this is Naruto Uzumaki. Another Uzukaki. Great, more racket. Tsuyu growled, hey, shut the up. Many of the children giggled at her, but were soon shooed away by her and Naruto's Bushins. We're here to rescue you. Yeah, right, the boy yelled, I'll believe that when Fangface stops being a pedo. It's true, Naruto yelled back, going up to the bars of the cell, are you Saiga Uchiha? Yeah, he said, what of it? Naruto quickly formed another Rasengan and blasted the door off its hinges, we're here to take you home to Konohagakure. 5 minutes after they'd left, Naruto and Tsuyu returned with at least 10 children and their Bushins. Jiraiya smiled as the parents of the children scooped them up in their arms in joy. The little girl that had clung to Naruto was taken by Shizuku, who kissed her face all over. Naruto smiled at that, then dispelled the jutsu as the original came in with Tsuyu carrying a weak and malnourished teenager a little older than themselves. Siaga, Akira cried, thank goodness. Ohayu, he raised his hand in greeting. Is that everyone? Jiraiya asked. Naruto and Tsuyu nodded. All right, he tossed out the scroll, rolling it open, everyone step into the scroll, please and we'll get you out of here in no time. Saiga looked at the man like he was crazy, but watched as the Uzumakis stepped into the sealing matrix. Jiraiya made a few hand signs and activated the scroll. Soon all of them were inside the scroll, with the exception of Saiga. You're next, Gaki, Jiraiya said, motioning for the Uchiha to step up. He grumbled but stepped onto the scroll as well and he too was drawn in when the old Sennin activated the scroll. Okay, that's that, Jiraiya said, then bit down on his thumb, Kuchio's no jutsu. Gamma appeared out of the smoke with his usual silent salute to Jiraiya. Good to see you, too, friend. Jiraiya showed him the scroll, I need you to get this to the Hokage as soon as possible, and have her open it immediately. It contains members of the Uzumaki clan, and 1 Uchiha clan member. Gamma's large eyes widened, but wrapped his tongue around the scroll and poofed away immediately. Now, Jiraiya grinned, let's blow this place to hell. I think not. Naruto jumped back at the roar as the floor beneath them erupted as a large black body shot out of the ground. Tsuyu flashed to his side and pulled him out of harm's way as the massive scales crashed down where he'd landed just a moment earlier. Shit. Jiraiya growled, that's got to be Yamato no Orochi. None other, intruder. The massive snake hissed. Now you shall feel my hunger. The head of the demon snapped around, it maw open, and spat a green spray at the old toad Sennin. He down as the spray hit the wall with a hiss. Not today, monster. Jiraiya yelled, then clapped his hands together, Hari Jigoku. His long mane of hair spiked and hardened like spines, then shot out, embedding themselves into the snake's scales. Naruto! Jiraiya yelled, use it. Naruto looked back at the old man, then at Tsuyuya, who now knew many things about him, except this. She looked right back at him. Then took out her flute. Whatever it is you have to do, then do it. She said, just do it. I don't know how my genjutsu will work on him, and I don't have my curse mark anymore, so all I have is my Doki summoning. Naruto nodded, biting him lip, okay, just don't hate me. You ready, Kyuubi? Hate you. Tsuyuya spat, what the hell are you talking about? Always. Kit, let's go. As if in answer to Tsuyuya's question, a burning red chakra cloak wrapped itself around Naruto. The blonde grunted in pain and bent down on all fours as a tail and ears sprouted from the cloak, giving him the appearance of his tenant. You may have to use more than this, but let's test this bastard out. Right. Naruto shot forward in a burst of speed and slammed into the snake, digging his now razor-sharp claws into the beast's scales. Orochi screamed in pain and rage as the blonde Jinchuriki began to tear into him, then spun his body in whirling motion in an attempt to dislodge him. Jiraiya took the chance to rush over to the stunned Tsuyuya and rush out of the cell and back down the hall to escape the battle. Wait. Tsuyuya yelled, snapping out of it, what about Naruto? We won't be able to help him in close quarters like that. Jiraiya said, we need to find some place open to lure that thing. The operating room. Tsuyuya snapped, that's as open as it gets. Jiraiya nodded and sped back the way they'd came, only to find Naruto galloping at full speed toward the same location. Orochi was right behind him, snapping at the chakra tail in rage. What the hell is that? Tsuyuya asked. That chakra. That, my dear, Jiraiya said, is his great secret. He is the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. You mean? She looked down the way he'd gone and heard the terrible sounds of both of them fighting. Oh Kami, how could he be a demon? He's not, the old Sennin said, he's merely the container. There's nothing different about him from any other 12-year-old boy. But because of the devastation the fox caused, he was branded with the demon's sins. The sounds of the fighting grew louder and more fierce. Tsuyuya ground her teeth together and squirmed out of his arms. I don't give a at this point. He needs help. She bit down on her thumb, and slammed her hand to the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu. A huge puff of smoke appeared, along with 3 large, ugly ogres. Jiraiya cringed at the sight of their weapons. Cubs, spears and axes adorned their backs. Tsuyuya grinned, well, you have let me sign the toad contract yet. She took out her flute and started playing a fast, erratic tune that had the 3 ogres turning around and running in the direction of the fight. As Tsuyuya ran after them, Jiraiya grinned and sighed, I really need to get her that contract. Kit, take it easy. You're using too much chakra. I don't care. This thing goes down with or without me. Naruto growled, and lunged at the monster again, letting his now 2-tailed cloaked claws slam into the soft belly of the snake. The Kyuubi was growing more worried with each passing second. The 1-tailed cloak the boy could handle, but at the 2-tailed cloak, he could feel the boy's seal weakening. Kit, I'm you, this is happening too fast. If you keep bring the level up too fast, the seal will break. You'll kill us both. Naruto was through listening at the moment. Orochi brought his enormous tail around and smashed him to the ground. The breath left his lungs as he coughed and gasped for air, and tried to get out from under the snake. Is this really all you've got, little Kitsune? Orochi hissed mockingly, and pressed down on him with his full weight, such a shame. I haven't had to fight for my food in such a long time. You've barely made me work for my meal. You. Naruto snarled. Damn right. His head whipped around just as 3 hulking figures rammed into the snake's body, pushing the coils off him. Come on. You move those tails. Thanks, Tsuyuya, he yelled, then jumped for the snake's head, you're mine. Ha! Orochi sprayed him with his acid. Naruto's cloak protected him, but his clothes still took some of the acid. Still Naruto jumped right on to the demon's head, and clawed at him savagely. Kid, hurry up, you're about to hit 3 tails. I'm working on it. He's tough. Use the Rasengan, Baka. The feral blonde growled and raised his hand as the chakra ball formed, turning purple from the Kyuubi's chakra. Eat this. Kyuubi Rasengan. The ball spiraled into the snake monster's head, sending him ramming into the ground. Tsuyu played her flute and ordered her Doki to attack, the three demons drawing their weapons and charging the demon. Orochi saw them coming and swiped his tail around, smashing them into the wall. Naruto leapt off the head, awed by how the beast could take such damage. Then a sharp pain racked through his body. Shit, he thought, it must be the third tail. You're right, Kit, and if this keeps up, the fourth tail will sprout and you'll lose all control. End this now. You're not helping. It's not like I can. Wait, what about Bijudama? Not in that form, Kit. It would kill you for sure. Then what do you suggest? How else do you kill a snake but by cutting off the head? Tsuyu, the head, aim for the head. Naruto roared, the spot I launched the Rasengan. Right. Her Doki had dispelled after they'd been hit by the tail, but she still had some exploding seals. She leapt up and ran along the wall and up. She flipped off the wall just as Orochi raised his head up to pursue the blonde Jinchuriki, and landed just above his hood. What's this? Get off of me, you. Tsuyu growled as she slapped a seal on the weak spot Naruto's Rasengan had made. Up yours, shit for brains. She leapt away shouting, Kai. The explosion that erupted from the seal sent the girl spinning through the air helplessly, while the giant snake roared in agony. I gotcha. Naruto came flying toward her and snatched her out of the air and landed quickly, setting her back on her feet before the chakra cloak could burn her. Nice one. Thanks, Foxy. Tsuyu smirked. TCH, better than, shithead-kun, I guess. Naruto growled. Gangway. Yakis. Both turned in time to see Jiraiya running toward the thrashing snake with two of his blazing Rasengan ready. Heat may make this thing fast, but let's see how much it can take. Kaden. Goen Rasengan. As the two burning spheres touched the snake's scales, flames erupted from the impact point and spread up around the beast's body, melting flesh and bone alike. Ga you wretched ninjin, my master will avenge me. Your whole village will burn. Jiraiya jumped back as Orochi tried to snap at him with his fangs, only to ignite the acid in his mouth when his head passed too close to the flames. Naruto came down from his nine tails cloak, nearly collapsing from the strain. We need to get out of here. Go, Jiraiya yelled, I already set the seals up with cage bushings. Let's get the outta here, then. Tsuyu grabbed Naruto's arm and slung it over her shoulders. Come on, shithead. Naruto grinned as they started running. What happened to Foxy? Shut it and run. Konohagakure no Sato. To say that the Hokage and the council were surprised by the new arrivals would be an understatement. When Gamma arrived with the scroll, she had assumed that it was information on the Akatsuki, or perhaps a progress report on Naruto's training. If only it were that simple. No, what she got were two clans thought to be extinct, and the news, via Shizuku Uzumaki, that Naruto now knew of his parentage. Plus the added bonus of finding one of Orochimaru's Otonins alive, and the potential destruction of one of the Snake Sanin's bases. Which was now what she had to deal with as 20 Uzumaki clan members, and one Uchiha now stood before the civilian and shinobi councils to decide their fates. You all know why I called this emergency meeting, correct? Tsunade asked, eyeing each of the civilians, then moving on to the shinobi, receiving a nod from each in turn, or yawn in the case of the Nara clan. Each member of the newly arrived clans was seated in front of the slug Sennin nervously, some clutching children. The true surprise was the Uchiha. Young Saiga appeared to be in the poorest of health aside from the others, considering his lineage, but he carried himself with some of the arrogance his clan was known for. We have been called, the old warhawk, Danzo Shimura, said, eyeing some of the newcomers, to determine whether these people are fit for village life among Konoha citizens. That is incorrect, Danzo Dono, Tsunade growled, stressing the honorific of his name with distaste, earning a slight glare from the civilian council members. We are here to discuss the potential that these few Uzumaki, and the one Uchiha, can do for this village should the shinobi council vote in their favor. Hiyashi Hyuga took an interest in the red-haired clan almost immediately. I find this to be acceptable. This caused everyone in the room to turn to him for an explanation. If I remember correctly, the Uzumaki were masters of Fuinjutsu, and many were born Kenjutsu masters. In terms of military strength, I will go ahead and cast my vote in restoring their clan when you call for it. This is where I stand. Tsunade was slightly taken aback by the normally stoic Hyuga clan head. That is very forward of you, Hyuga Dono. Will the council please take note of the Hyuga clan's vote? Noted, Kaharu and Homura said in unison. It is indeed rare that you take an interest in new clans like this, Hyuga-sama. Kaharu said, would you care to explain? If it would please the council. Hiyashi said, nodding towards Tsunade. Please, proceed, she said, I value your wisdom. As you wish, he said, nodding once more. As you all know, it was an Uzumaki Fuinjutsu that sealed away the Kyubi. This earned a few frowns all around the room. And since the destruction of Uzushiogakure, it has been a sad thing that those particular seals have been lost with its people. Danzo nodded. That is true, Hyuga-sama, but what proof do we have that these poor people have these jutsu? Akira stood from his seat. Permission to address the council, Hokage-sama. Granted, Akira-san. She nodded. Thank you. He turned and looked around the room, finally facing Danzo. We were hated, loved, and feared for the jutsu you think we do not have, Shimura-sama, and now I assure you that we do possess it. It was for these very seals that Orochimaru attacked and imprisoned my people. And for our abilities with our chakra. So you do have knowledge of these seals? Hyuga asked in what anyone would call delight if they knew the man well enough. We do, Akira said, smiling at the man, and I would like to take this opportunity to extend my thanks to the entirety of the Hyuga clan for their support. He bowed to him low at the waist. We also have some among us that possess healing abilities with our chakra, but unfortunately, the chakra chains that Orochimaru and many others coveted, has died with Kushina-sama, and they do not live on in her son. Son? One of the civilian council members asked in shock. I knew this woman, and I had no idea she even had a son. Tsunade braced herself for the shitstorm that was about to hit as Akira continued. She does, he said, though he is only half Uzumaki, he has her face, and his father's eyes and hair. Who do you speak of? A woman asked. I speak of Naruto Namikaze, who helped us to escape. As expected, there was nothing but quiet, for about 2 seconds, and then the council room erupted in shouts of anger and outrage at the demon brat's name. Even Saiga looked stunned by all of this, not knowing why the boy seemed so hated. Tsunade let them have a moment, then rose from her chair and slammed her fist down onto her desk, breaking the unfortunate piece of furniture in half. I demand that there be order right this minute. As soon as it broke out, the room grew quiet once again. Tsunade smirked and kicked the desk aside. Now, the next person to refer to Naruto as the demon brat, or any other form of insult will have a date with Ibiki Morino. She strode down into the center of the room. Now, cast your votes, Shinobi Council. Shall the Uzumaki join our ranks as members of Konohagakure? Inoichi Yamanaka was the first to stand. The Yamanaka clan will side for the restoration of the Uzumaki clan. Shikaku Nara stood next. I will stand with them. So will I, Shuza Akamichi said. I see no harm in it, Sum Inazuka said. It is the logical choice to allow them to continue, said Shibi Aburame. I will side with the restoration, Asuma Sarutobi said. Tsunade smiled. As Hyuga-sama has already cast his vote, the poll is unanimous. She turned to Akira. Akira Uzumaki, you and your clan are now part of the shinobi clans of Konoha. My thanks to you all. Akira bowed, then sat back down. Now on to the young Uchiha, she said, turning to Saiga. It is my understanding that you've been under Orochimaru for some time, is that true? It is, unfortunately, he said. He kept me in hopes of me developing the Sharingan, but they never did, so he locked me up. We any experiments carried out? She asked. Many, from blood to bone work. Saiga shivered. I hope I never have to see that man again. You won't have to. She smiled. Do you wish to establish your clan once more? What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Saiga asked. I thought my clan was already here in the village. Hiashi spoke up. Though it is regrettable, the Uchiha were wiped out by one of their own 6 years ago. And the last 2 surviving members, aside from yourself, have gone AWOL from the village. Saiga looked devastated. All of them. All the council nodded to the boy's question. Saigo hung his head sadly, and here I was hoping to see my mother again. He looked back up at Tsunade. I wish to re-establish my clan, Kekkei Genkei, or not. Votes. Tsunade looked all around the room. No one voted against him. Well, it would seem that the village has a few new clans, she said happily, which brings us to the issue of the Namikaze clan. To speak of that demon as part of the Fourth's clan is blasphemous to his memory, one of the civilians said, the same man as before, to say that he is the Fourth's son is heresy. Tsunade strode over to the man, glowering down at him. You are here as a witness, and witness only, Bunzo-san. Any and all matters concerning a shinobi is my business and the business of the Shinobi Council. And, Hiashi put in, there is proof that Naruto is indeed a Namikaze by blood and by birth. Hiruzen kept the marriage a secret so that his enemies would try to abduct his wife, or her unborn child later on. My wife and Kushina were dear friends, and she knew of their marriage, and their impending parenthood. Danzo stood. May I suggest to the Shinobi Council that Naruto be named head of the Namikaze clan upon his return to the village? Seconded. Hiashi said happily. I vote yes, Shikaku said in a bored tone, my son speaks highly of him. So does mine, Shuza said, and I knew about their marriage as well. I see no reason that he should not have his heritage. The rest of the Shinobi Council all voted for the reinstatement of the Namikaze. Tsunade narrowed her eyes at Danzo, wondering why he'd suggested such a thing when he was a civilian shinobi on the civilian council. The vote is cast, she sighed, but not unhappy with the turn of events. Upon his return, Naruto Namikaze will be named head of his clan. Splendid, Danzo said, then I suggest that the Clan Restoration Act be set in motion for the Uchiha and Namikaze clans immediately. Wah! Chew! Catching a cold, Kit? Kyuubi asked in concern, you may have been weakened after that fight today. Nah, I think someone's just talking about me. Naruto sniffed, rubbing his nose. Someday, huh? It certainly was. You nearly had me worried with the use of the cloak. Kyuubi chuckled, you almost went over the limit. Didn't have much of a choice. But we got the job done at least. No harm done. The Kyuubi sighed, Kit, we need to talk about that. Oh, what's wrong? Nothing, yet, Kit, and that's what I WNAT to tell you about. If you keep using my power the way you are, even in small amounts, you will kill yourself, and I will be released. Naruto was a little stunned hearing this. Why are you telling me this? Wouldn't it make more sense for you to keep that to yourself? Again the fox sighed, this time in shame. I know it doesn't make sense, but the only explanation I can give is, well, I've grown fond of you, Kit. Come again. Naruto sat up in his sleeping bag. You once threatened to rip me to shreds, and now you're saying you like me. Oh, shut up. Trust me, if I didn't like you, I'd still go through with my little plan about the next spring, but you're actually a late bloomer for that to work. Gay. Just what were you planning to do to me, Kyuubi? Spring is the fox's mating season, Kit. If I had gone through with it, you and the vixen would be joined at the hip, in more ways than one. Oh, Cammy, please don't. Pay attention. I told you, you're a late bloomer, so I'll hold it back until we get back to the village. And before you ask why I can hold it back forever, it's too powerful an urge for me to do that. My chakra will spike within the next 3 years, and when it does, either you find yourself a mate, or spend the day locked up so you won't attack the first vixen to cross your path. So there's no avoiding it. He felt the fox shake his head. Okay, so I guess I need to lock my doors when that time comes. Thanks for the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi grumbled something. About that, Kit. My name isn't Kyuubi, it's Kurama. Naruto smiled. Nice to meet you, Kurama. Oi, shithead, Tsuyu moaned. Keep it down, I'm trying to sleep. They're late, growled an irritated Tsunade. Sakura Haruno felt the same irritation. This almost as bad a waiting for Kakashi-sensei. The Pinkett growled, an almost perfect imitation of her Shishio. I wonder what Jiraiya-sama managed to teach him. Hopefully something useful, the blonde woman said, cracking her knuckles, but so help me, if he taught that boy anything perverted. She let the threat hang in the air. The two genin guards at the gates looked nervous. Sakura giggled, I'm sure that he's done right by Naruto. I mean, look at what's been done for the village already. Tsunade smiled and nodded. It was true, since the re-establishment of the Uchiha clan, things had improved for the young blonde's reputation. Saiga proved to be an invaluable to the village, even without his Sharingan. He was an excellent shinobi, and now his clan was well on its way to being restored. When Danzo had suggested the CRA, Tsunade had nearly sent the man flying, but Saiga had seen reason in the idea, but had made it clear that he would be the one choosing his wives, and not the council. As for the suggestion of Naruto going through the act, the clans had put that on hold, seeing as the boy in question would be returning to the village for some time. Unfortunately for him, Danzo had already composed a list of young shinobi women that showed interest in the Namikaze clan. When Sakura had heard the news of the act being forced, she'd almost broken the doors down in her attempts to get to the bandaged man. As for the Uzumaki clan, they had done well for themselves. Many of the seals they had brought to the village served greater purposes. Training weights were no longer used for young genin, as the Uzumaki gravity seals were easily applied, and easy for the young shinobi to use. Shishio, are you worried about what Naruto will say about the CRA? Sakura asked. I mean, knowing him, he's liable to pitch a fit if it's forced on him. Oh, I doubt that the council would risk upsetting the last surviving member of the Namikaze clan. Tsunade said, sighing heavily, it's the fact that Jiraiya might actually try to convince him to go through with it that has me worried. Sakura deadpanned, he would, wouldn't he? He would, she said, which is why I sent a message to him earlier this week in hopes of him. Danzo will most likely try and start pushing the girls at him as soon as he gets back, bar the Chunin exams, and find some way to tie the boy to him. Naruto won't go for that, Sakura said, he'll go straight for the exams. Tsunade chuckled, without a doubt. Suddenly, she felt a shiver going down her spine. Without a doubt, Tsunade Haim, you've done well. Pervert. Cool, I can see the village. Yelled a tall young blonde. We're almost home. Beside him a red-haired young woman snorted. Speak for yourself, Foxy, she said, they'll probably take me to prison, and you to the bunny farm. Naruto shivered, over my dead body, no way are you going to jail after all the help you've been. And I am not letting them stick me with a wife or two. Tsuyu rolled her eyes at him, like you would know what to do with a girl if she said Ohio to you. And what does that make you? Naruto grinned, you're a girl. No shit, Foxy, nice of you to notice. She batted her eyes at him, making him cringe. Don't do that, Naruto shivered, it really doesn't suit you. She scowled at him, what the does that mean? Naruto grinned at her, that's what I mean, Tsuyu-chan, I don't know any girls that curse as much as you do. So what? She growled. Naruto laughed, so a lot of girls at the village would be picking their jaws up off the ground if they heard you on one of your rants. He laughed again, imagining Ino or Sakura listening to the redhead, matter of fact, I hope I'm there to see it. Yeah, you will if I have anything to say about it. She said, wonder what happened to Gigi. Naruto shrugged. Jiraiya had disappeared earlier that morning, saying that he'd meet them in the village. Knowing him, he's either scoping out the bathhouse, or he's playing with Ba-chan. He said, groaning, I swear, it's like looking after a kid in a candy store. Tsuyu giggled, come on, he's not that bad. Really? After that time he tried to peep on you last year? Naruto asked. I've got nothing to hide, she said, looping her arms behind her head, so long as he doesn't try anything other than that, we're good. Naruto thought for a moment, so you don't mind being spied on? I didn't say that, she yelled. But you just said. Shut the up, she yelled. Gigi's harmless. You on the other hand. Like I'd do that, Naruto growled. You groped me. Tsuyu snapped. Are you ever gonna let me live that down? Naruto asked, blushing. I already told you that Kurama woke me up. Oh sure, blame the fox. Tsuyu sneered. That's what I said. Kurama snickered. Admit it, Kit. You've lost. Don't start. It's bad enough that she never lets me forget that little stunt you put me through. Sure. And have you forgotten what's about to happen? 2 months and it's time to go crazy, Kit. Don't remind me. Are you two fighting again? Tsuyu asked, seeing the look on his face. Whenever Naruto started staring off into space, she knew he had to be talking to his tenant again. Normally, as Naruto put it, they argued over things, like Naruto not eating enough meat. No, he's just reminding me of something I don't want to think about. Naruto said, sighing. Tsuyu shrugged, not wanting to pry. Pervert. Huh. Tsuyu blinked. Naruto laughed. I think we just found Ero Sennin. A minute later they both heard a high-pitched scream that was most definitely the old toad sage when he was being beaten for doing research where he wasn't supposed to. You know, maybe you should take a card from his hand. You might actually win over a vixen. No thanks. Naruto shouted out loud, causing Tsuyu to look at him. What did he say this time? She asked. That I should be more like Ero Sennin, he said, groaning again, like that would happen. I wouldn't let you live that long. She smiled sweetly, making Naruto shiver all the way to his sandals. Soon they came up to the gates of the village, and spotted 3 familiar figures. One was a taller blonde woman with pigtails, and something that made Tsuyu cross her arms in jealousy. I'm 16 for Kami's sake, where are my tits at? She grumbled. Naruto bit back a laugh that would have surely sent him flying into the Hokage monument. The other figure was a slim younger girl with short pink hair dressed in red. Lastly, of course, was a beaten and battered Jiraiya. His face was puffed up from numerous punches to the face. Naruto. Sakura called out, waving to them. Naruto smiled and waved back. Tsuyu did nothing, unsure of what to do. Naruto saw this, noticing that she'd clenched her hands. Still smiling, he reached out and took her left in his right and pulled her along gently. She didn't resist. Over the years, they'd come to do this unconsciously at times when they made it to a new village or met new people. Tsuyu was actually very shy despite her brash attitude. And when that shyness took over, he'd always take her hand like he'd just done and take the lead. When the 2 women saw this, both were equally stunned, only just noticed the girl since she seemed to be hanging back from him slightly. Sakura was more freaked than anything. The Naruto she knew was an idiotic brat that wouldn't know what to do with a girl even if someone gave him a manual. Tsunade, however, had a wide smile on her face when she saw the girl. Like father like son, huh, Jiraiya? She asked. That he is, her old partner said as the 2 teens came closer. They've come a long way in the last 3 years. I'm proud to call them both my apprentices. Tsunade gave him a look, so the toads accepted her. No, Jiraiya said sadly, she wasn't able to stay astride Bunta for more than a minute before she was thrown. But she has something different. I think you'll be surprised. Ba-chan, Naruto said, it's great to see you. A vein throbbed on her head. How many times have I told you not to call me that, brat? Sakura looked worried. She knew that Tsunade had a terrible temper, even when she was sober. Shishio, I'm sure he didn't, she started, but she didn't need to worry, because a moment later the slug Sanin enveloped the younger blonde in a bone-crushing hug. By Kami you've grown, Naruto. She said to the boy she'd viewed as a little brother, I can't really call you a shrimp anymore. Naruto smiled and scratched the back of his head. Thanks, but I've still got a ways to go before I catch up to my dad. He grinned. Tsunade frowned a little, so he really did know. But, I've had to grow a little just to keep up with the training I went through. Her smile returned. I should hope so, and you'll have a chance to show me what you've got. The Chunin exams are coming up soon. Cool, it's about time I earned that promotion. Naruto, Sakura said, looking at the strange redhead standing behind him. Who's your friend? This brought Tsunade's attention to the girl. The former Otonin bit her lip in nervousness. In Tsunade's eyes, the girl slightly resembled Kushina, but she was obviously not an Uzumaki due to her low chakra levels. Low compared to the Uzumaki clan, she thought, but she's close to a Jonin's level in chakra. She also seemed to gravitate herself around the blonde teen unconsciously. Naruto grinned again. This is my friend, Tayuya. Tsunade smiled. Formerly of Otogakure, am I correct? Sakura's eyes widened. A sound ninja, she thought, then watched as Tayuya nodded. Tsunade kept the smile on her face. Well, welcome to Konoha. Thanks, she said, still keeping close to Naruto. So, Sakura said, how did the training go? The three of them looked a little disappointed. Tsunade frowned. Don't tell me you couldn't control the fox. It's not that he couldn't control it, Jiraiya said, scratching his neck, it's just using it weakens the seal. Tsunade looked a little shocked. How bad is it? Bad enough, Naruto said, the fox was the one that warned me about it. Wait a minute, Sakura said, the fox told you. You know, Naruto asked, almost forgetting that she was there. Yeah, I found out when Shishio told me you were the Yondaimi's son. She said smiling, then frowned a little, plus a lot of people kept calling you a demon, and other things. He's not, Tayuya growled. Calm down, Naruto said, soothing his friend, you know how people talk. He turned back to Sakura, but yeah, the fox himself warned me about the seal weakening. He even told me his name. So we've just been focusing on getting stronger in case the Akatsuki turn up. That's good to know, since they're bound to show up here in the next day or so. Tsunade said, since Gaara has been named Kazekage, he'll be coming here to oversee his genin for the Chunin exams, and we have the Ryokage and his brother coming for their own shinobi. So that's 2 more Jinchuriki. It's too tempting for them to pass up. So, Gaara's Kazekage now. Naruto said, smiling, I guess I've got some catching up to do. Tsunade nodded, your friendship with him has made things between us easy. Suna is now one of our greatest allies. Now, why don't I show you to your new home? New home, Naruto said, confused. That's right, you don't think your parents left you with nothing, do you? Tsunade smiled. Apart from being the finest Fuin masters in the village, they were the wealthiest. And I think it's time you found out just how much you still have of them. The walk through the village was just like Naruto had expected. They were all there. The cold glares, the whispers, someone even threw a rock in his direction. It was a small mercy for the villagers that Naruto stood behind Tsunade so that she couldn't see what was going on. If she did, then whoever threw the rock would be dead. Tayuya was a little shocked at how bad he was being treated. If it were her, she would have attacked at the first whisper. But her friend was taking it like it was an everyday thing. For him, it was true, this had been an everyday thing long ago, and it still pained him that so many people viewed him as his tenant's incarnation. At the moment, said tenant was desperately trying not to lose himself to the rage that was bubbling up inside him at his host's mistreatment. Naruto calmed him, saying that there was nothing they could do that wouldn't work against them in the villagers' favors. Look, the demon brat has himself a whore. Someone whispered, catching the blonde Jinchuriki's attention. Don't point at them, they'll hear you. Said a woman. Who cares, it's not like he'll do anything. He's too afraid of being tossed out of the village. And only a whore would let herself be seen with that monster. Naruto's patience snapped then. Without stopping to think of the consequences, he rounded on the villager and punched him square in the face. The woman that had been with him was now horrified to see that the normally tame, demon brat, had lashed out at someone. What the hell are you doing? She yelled. What right do you have to attack him? Tsunade had turned and was watching the scene unfold with interest while Jiraiya grinned in amusement. Sakura and Tayuya weren't sure what to think. Neither of them were used to seeing Naruto strike out at anyone like this. What right? Naruto sneered angrily at the woman, who backed away in fear. What gives you the right to speak about someone you've never even met? For all you know, Tsuyu could be the daughter of a cage, yet you assume she is my whore just because she's with me. The man he'd knocked down groaned, and staggered back to his feet. How dare you? He reached a nearby broom, and swung it. Naruto caught it easily, and crushed the wooden handle like it was nothing. How dare you? Naruto growled back, you forget, I'm a shinobi of this village. And I'm also the container of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the same beast the Yondaime Hokage gave his life to seal away. If I didn't look up to him so much, if I didn't love this village, what's to stop me from letting the fox loose, and letting him destroy everything and everyone that's ever caused me pain? Tsunade stepped forward, I certainly wouldn't blame you. And it makes things worse that you are the Yondaime's son, and these people still treat you like trash. She then turned to the man that had provoked him. And you should know, that this being a shinobi village, you are at our mercy. Should you deem it necessary to attack one of my shinobi, then they will defend themselves, should you provoke them, then they will act. Naruto Namikaze is a shinobi, and you will treat him with respect. The man growled, and backed away. He'd seen Tsunade's temper in action. The slug Sennin smirked, having made her point. Come along, Gaki, you should see your new home before we get down to business with the training mission. Tsuyu smiled. Come on, shithead-kun, time to check the new fox den. Naruto couldn't help grinning. Are you ever going to use my name on regular basis? Do I ever? She walked back to him and looped her arm through his. Come on. You're from a respectable clan, no need to be seen around the common rabble. Jiraiya grinned when he heard a fair few growls at her comment. Tsuyu-chan's right, Gaki, besides we still have to deal with that CRA, don't we? Naruto shivered. Oh, dear Kami, just what I need. Fangirls. Sakura giggled. Oh, come on, Naruto, it won't be that bad. Help me. Here we go again. Tsunade winced. Against the walls. Naruto watched as she and Sakura backed against the wall while Jiraiya slowly followed suit. Naruto and Tsuyu looked at each other and shrugged and got against the wall. Not a moment too soon, as it turned out, as a familiar face came barreling down the street, with a large mob right behind him. Is that Saiga? Jiraiya asked. Yup. Tsunade grinned. Ever since he turned 16, he's been the village's most illegible bachelor. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. You mean he wasn't forced into the CRA? Sakura grinned. Oh, they tried, but he made it clear that he'd be choosing his own wives. She giggled, but that hasn't stopped the ladies from going after him. Wow. Both Naruto and Tsuyu smirked. Excuse me, pardon me, common throw. Saiga roared, racing past them, coming to a near abrupt halt when he spotted Naruto and Tsuyu. Naruto. Hey. Naruto raised his hand in greeting. How's village life? Peachy. Saiga grinned. Couldn't be better. Saiga-sama. The female mob yelled. Time to go. Saiga leapt away, just as the mob thundered past them. Tsuyu nearly fell over laughing at the teen's predicament, having to hold on to an equally boisterous Naruto, who had tears in his eyes. Oh, brother. Naruto laughed. That's worse than what Sasuke had to go through. Holy shit. Tsuyu howled. How does he put up with that? Tsunade chuckled. He puts it down as speed training. Some of the older Uzumaki boys have the same problem among their age groups, but well, let's just say they have your mother's sense of humor. Ha, I need to get to know my extended family. Naruto crowed, his bad mood all but forgotten. 10 minutes later found the group in front of a sizable estate. The wooden gates that lead to the grounds were sealed with what Naruto identified as a blood seal that reacted to the family member's touch, recognizing the blood running through the person's veins. This one's pretty complicated, Naruto said, examining the seal. If anyone other than a member of the clan or a close friend that the caster worked into the seal touches this, it's a one-way trip to see Kami-sama, courtesy of a powerful shock. Jiraiya chuckled. If I remember correctly, several of Danzo's men tried, but as you can guess, several needed to be replaced. Well, come on. Tsuyu sighed, taking hold of Naruto's hand and pressing it against the seal. Naruto fully expected himself to receive a shock, but instead it glowed a golden color, and the seal dispelled, and the heavy wooden gates swung open. The path the gates revealed was slightly grown up due to lack of use, but otherwise clean. The house that was seen was on top of a small hill was a large traditional house that reminded Naruto somewhat of the Hyuga clan's estate, slightly smaller in size, though. Wow, was all Naruto could get out. Tsuyu giggled, and tugged him onto the grounds toward the house. Come on, Foxy, let's check it out. Naruto nodded dumbly and tagged along behind her. Once they were up the path, Naruto found a similar seal on the front door, which he quickly deactivated, and the door slid open for him, almost as if it was welcoming him home. There was the sound of rushing wind as the door opened, like there was no air inside the house. That's probably an airtight seal to keep out the dust and keep things inside fresh and clean. Tsunade said, Kushina always did like to keep a clean house. That makes sense, Naruto thought, and kicked off his sandals as he entered the house. It was overwhelming to him, in a way, that he was actually standing in his parents' home, his home, after so long of thinking he was alone in the world. Lining the walls were numerous pictures of his parents in varying stages of their lives from their academy days to a picture of Minato and Kushina facing the camera with Kushina extremely far along in pregnancy. His eyes stung with unshed tears as he took it all in. This is, to right it is, Tsuyu smiled at him, giving his hand a squeeze. Welcome home, shithead-kun. Naruto blinked, snapping out of his daze and looked down at her with a smirk. You know, you should really refer to me as Namikaze-sama. He grinned, then winced as the red head flicked his cheek. In your dreams, she said. Speaking of dreams, Tsunade said, making her presence known to them once more, where are you planning to sleep, Tsuyu-chan? Tsuyu hadn't thought about that. For the last 3 years after the incident at the old base with Yamato no Orochi, she'd stuck close to Naruto, even sleeping close to him. She wasn't sure she could fall asleep without hearing him breathing. She'll stay here, Naruto spoke up, surprising the two women, and causing Tsuyu to look up at him, that is, if she feels comfortable with it. It's fine by me, she said, not really sure if she could refuse. I kinda thought he'd say that, Jiraiya smirked, drawing the attention of the older blonde and Pinkett, those two are as close as siblings. I even let them spend a year on their own, and they came out of that singing show tunes. You left them alone, Tsunade growled. For a whole year, Sakura yelled, imitating her sensei. Yes, and in that time, if you haven't checked the bingo books, they took down 5 A-class Jonins, and their lackeys. Jiraiya pointed out, the Gakis are now rich because of that. Despite the successfulness of that venture, this did not save the Toad Sanin from a pink and blonde beating. While this was going on, Naruto and Tsuyu moved further into the house, taking in the surroundings. The back of the house was a spacious training area, as well as a small building that had steam rising from the window. That must be a bathhouse. Tsuyu said, better not invite Gigi over, nay. Yeah, it'll be like walking into one of his books. Naruto snickered. Tsuyu giggled and pulled him down the halls toward what had to be the sleeping areas. Naruto opened one the doors, and nearly broke down right there. Tsuyu peeked around him to see what was wrong until she saw it. Inside was a small room, with light blue trimmed walls and little toads printed on the walls, and a multitude of small toys, a nursery. Naruto walked into the room slowly, leaving Tsuyu at the door, and taking it all in. There was also a small cradle in the room, and a small bed just big enough for a toddler with a little nightstand beside it. This was supposed to be mine. He breathed out, and then the tears did spill out. Naruto sank to his knees, covering his face and trying to hide his tears. Tsuyu had rarely seen the blonde Jinchuriki cry before, but when he did it was only out of sheer happiness or sadness. This, she could see, was a mixture of the two. Sadness for what he'd lost and never had the chance to know. Happiness for the simple fact that he hadn't been unwanted. Stepping into the room silently, and kneeling by his side to place a hand on his shoulder. Welcome home, Naruto Namikaze. Later that day, after Naruto and Tsuyu were settled, Tsunade returned to the ever-present task of Hokage, mainly, paperwork. I swear, there's no end to this. She groaned, and reached for her drawer, pulling out a half-full bottle of sake. A little early for that, isn't it, Haim-chan? Tsunade sputtered just before putting the bottle to her lips and whirled around to find Jiraiya sitting in the window. Why'd I never have that thing locked? She wondered. What are you doing here, pervert? I just thought I'd drop by before heading out again. He said, holding up his hands. Besides, I saw that you took an interest in Tsuyu-chan's closeness to the Gaki. Tsunade harumphed and took a long swing from her bottle. So what? I'm entitled, aren't I? She growled. What is it with those two, anyway? Jiraiya chuckled. Well, you know Naruto. He's friendly toward everyone. Tsuyu's become like a sister to him these last 3 years, and she treats him like a true friend, when no one's around. So they're just friends, she said, taking another drink. I have a feeling that won't last too long. She and Jiraiya chuckled. Jiraiya smiled. Oh, there's something there all right, they're both just too dense to see it yet. I mean the way the two of them stayed so close on the trip was proof enough for that. Then why? Mainly because it's just them, Haim-chan. He grinned as a tick mark appeared on her head. Tsuyu-chan doesn't really get love, seeing as she was practically raised by Orochimaru, and Naruto wouldn't know if someone loved him unless they came out and screamed it in his face. Tsunade threw her head back and laughed. You're right about that. His mother was the same way in a sense. She didn't know how Minato felt until that one time she was kidnapped. Jiraiya grinned. He's a lot like them, isn't he? More than I can say. She said, it's almost painful how much he resembles both of them. Tell me, if you couldn't help him with the Kyuubi's chakra, then when did you work on? Jiraiya chuckled again. Believe it or not, that boy has a talent for fuinjutsu. Really? Completely, he said. He even worked out a seal that's able to draw a living soul into an object. He could imprison the Sanbi if we knew where the creature was. You looked for it. Tsunade felt her temper rise. You know how dangerous that thing is. It may only have 3 tails, but a biju is a biju. Calm down, Jiraiya said. They did that on their own, because, and this is what Naruto told me, Kurama, that's the fox's name, wanted his brother to live in peace. That particular seal would have let it fall into a sleep as long as the seal was in place. So it was the fox's idea. She scoffed. I find it hard to believe that a tailed beast would actually try to hunt down one of its own just to seal it away. That's what I said when they told me about the mission, but Kurama assured me that sealing the Sanbi away was for the best, since it would ruin whatever the Akatsuki have planned. Unless they have a Fuin master in their midst. They would have to. She sighed. From what I've heard, they seek to extract the biju from their Jinchuriki hosts, which we know would be the death of that person. Jiraiya groaned. After all this time, there's still so little we know. Well, there's still time, Tsunade said. After the Chunin exams, I'm going to wrap the matter of Sasuke Uchiha up for good. What do you mean? He asked. I intend to have a team go after him and Orochimaru. She clarified. I've had enough of his nonsense. The council has been breathing down my neck ever since Shikamaru and his team came back so badly injured from the last mission. You do realize that Tsuyu was part of the same team that took Sasuke? Jiraiya asked. I do, she nodded, which is why I'm planning to bring it up with the council, though I'll need to speak to Temari and Shikamaru about her, there may be some hard feelings between them. She smiled, but I have a feeling that if anyone tries to harm the girl, Naruto will definitely let them see what he can do. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. If anyone hurt little Tsuyu-chan, Naruto wouldn't hesitate to rip into them like he was the biju he contained. Naruto sat in the living room of his parents' home, now his home, letting the day's events shift through his thoughts. Seeing the room he should have grown up in had been too much for him in the emotional long run. Even if Tsuyu had comforted him, it was Kurama that had calmed him, and drawn the young blonde into his mind and let the boy blow off some steam. Blowing off said steam had consisted of a major spar with the enormous fox, which left him tired, yet satisfied. When he'd woken up, Tsuyu had moved away and stepped into the kitchen to start unsealing all their scrolls that contained food to start dinner. Unfortunately, in the 3 years of training, cooking had not agreed with her. Naruto found her sobbing angrily over what used to be a frying pan, and what looked like rice or some sort of vegetable. Naruto took the chance to suggest they go out for dinner, which she agreed to after she calmed down a little. The first thing that had been on Naruto's mind since he'd thought of food was his favorite food stand, Ichiraku ramen. Tsuyu, seeing where this was going, demanded her own favorite, dango. This led to a small confrontation on Naruto's part when they ran into a certain Tokubetsu Jonin that also loved dango, and messing with Naruto. Anko Mitarashi immediately homed in on the pair as soon as they entered the little cafe. She had already finished around 10 sticks of her favorite sweets, and threw one of the sharp sticks straight at Naruto's right cheek. Not expecting the attack, Naruto flinched away when he felt the scratch, and only to be caught in a familiar hold. Well, looky what we have here. Naruto shivered as he felt Anko's tongue flick over the small trail of blood running down his cheek. Still as tasty as before. Tsuyu turned a dangerous shade of red as she saw the strange woman hanging all over her friend, and more so when she noticed that her were firmly planted in the blonde Genin's back. Naruto took notice of 2 things, 3 if one wanted to be technical, which was the fact that Anko was practically smothering him with her ample, and the outraged look on his red-headed companion. All in all, he was not in his happy place. The ensuing fight between the 2 kunoichi left the dango shop a mess, and several other people stuck to the walls with dango sticks, which included an unfortunate Naruto. When Anbu Ninja had finally arrived to break up the fight, Naruto had already decided that he would never go near another dango as long as he lived. All of this led to Tsuyu carrying an exhausted and beaten Naruto home with an extremely amused fox roaring with laughter at the poor blonde's misfortune. Now he found himself lounging on the couch, trying to figure out what he was going to do during the Chunin exam, or what he was going to do with Tsuyu for that matter. She wasn't even a Konoha shinobi, which made her an enemy in the eyes of Danzo and the other elders. Danzo, he knew from Jiraiya's would stop at nothing to try and control him, whether it be a form of genjutsu, or a form of blackmail, he would do anything. He might even go after Tsuyu-chan. He thought, which made him uncomfortable. He knew Tsuyu well enough to know that she'd take half the village with her before Danzo managed to subdue her, perhaps even killing herself in the process. And then I would fight for her. He thought, knowing full well that he was more than capable of destroying the village if he wanted. Then he heard a dark chuckling in the back of his mind. Those are dark thoughts, Kit, for one that wants nothing but peace. Why the sudden urge to destroy? It's hard to explain, Naruto said to the fox. Tsuyu-chan didn't come here so people could mistreat her. That is true, Kit, but you know that people will always talk about things that interest them, and not all of it will be pleasant. Take your situation for example. People view you as myself, when you are only my container. Also people think it blasphemous that you are the Yondaime's son, when you carry the burden that he entrusted to you. You see. Yeah, Naruto thought, people simply place blame where none should be placed for the sins of others. Come to think of it, you never did tell me why you attacked the village, Kurama. That's something I really don't like to talk about, Kit. Truth be known, I didn't want to attack the village. When Kushina had just given birth to you, a masked man with a black cloak took you from them, and threatened to kill you if they didn't hand Kushina over to him. And they did. No, Minato managed to snatch you from him, but there were exploding seals attached to you, and he had to use his flying thunder god technique to get you away before they went off. In that amount of time, I was torn from Kushina's body, which should have killed her immediately, but she held on. It's one of the things I admired about her. She was by far the strongest female I'd ever met. Naruto smiled. Thanks, Kurama. So what happened next? Well, Of course, Minato went after him. But by that time, I was already under a powerful genjutsu that was, if you can believe it, a Sharingan power. You mean it was an Uchiha? I'm not entirely sure of that, Kit. Remember, back then, the Uchiha were plentiful, which could easily mean that someone slew one of the clansmen and took their eyes from them. I guess that's true. So what happened then? I was forced to lay waste to the village. Kurama said, sadly, I had to fight with many of the village clans, including the Akamaiki clan head, and that is something I'll not soon forget. Naruto laughed, remembering that the Akamaiki clan specialized in expanding themselves into giants, making them almost impossible to best in combat. Did you have to fight my dad? Yes, as a matter of fact, he dropped a giant toad on my back. You mean, Chief Toad? Wow, that must have hurt. It did, but not as much as what happened next. I attacked you, Naruto. What? Why? Because, after the genjutsu had ceased, I was in a rage. All the while your father was getting ready to seal me away again, in a child no less. So I attacked. I guess I can understand you wanting to be free again, so what happened then? Were you sealed? Not quite. After I attacked, Kit, you must realize that the seals Minato used that night were life-threatening to the caster. He and Kushina were already dying. Kurama, Naruto said, what happened? Sai, when I tried to attack you, Kit, both of them threw themselves in front of my claws. Kit, Naruto, I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? Kurama, you didn't force the seal open. It was that masked man, wasn't it? Wait, could it have been the Akatsuki? The ones that wear those black cloaks with red clouds on them. Actually, you may be right, Kit. If they attack us during the Chunin exams, one of them might be the same one that attacked 12 years ago. Naruto hopped off the couch, smiling a little at the news. This is better than I hoped. If we can at least catch one of them, we could get a lot of answers out of him. Agreed, Kit, but I have a feeling that he is a true Uchiha. I've felt the pull of the Sharingan once before in my life, and it was Madara Uchiha that controlled me. Never heard of him, Naruto said, much to Kurama's pleasure. To him, Madara would be better off forgotten with the sands of time. Naruto yawned, deciding he'd had enough for one day, and moved down the hall to his chosen bedroom. His parents' room was the largest, but it didn't feel right to him just yet to even think about sleeping in there. It worked out well for Tayuya, seeing as there were 2 beds in the room, which meant she could sleep comfortable until she got used to the new living conditions. Unfortunately, Kit, Kurama said, when Naruto reached the door, perhaps you should. He slid the door open. Knock. And there stood Tayuya with her back to him, and her shirt raised halfway up. Before Naruto could stammer out an apology, his eyes had roamed over every inch of exposed skin, homing in on the small scrap of lace around her chest. Tayuya blushed deeply, and quickly pulled her shirt back into place. You could knock. Sorry. Naruto spun around, covering his eyes. I thought you were already asleep. You know I can't sleep alone. She snapped, I was waiting on you. Then blushed when she realized how her words came out, I mean I'm used to your snoring. Naruto sighed, he knew how Tayuya slept. More than once on their trip the girl had woken from a bad dream or two, and crawled over to him while she was still half asleep. She'd always made sure to wake early enough to creep back to her own bed before he woke up, but he always knew when she curled up against him. Okay. I'll step out again so you can change, he said, and closed the door. Tayuya grumbled, could have turned around. She quickly threw her clothes off and found an oversized shirt to throw over herself. Normally she slept in her gear, but now it wasn't needed anymore. She could relax and enjoy herself without having to worry about having to move at first notice. Don't get too comfy, girl. She thought, unsnapping her bra. I still have to deal with the damned council. Once they find out who I am, the shit really hits the fan. But to be able to sleep peacefully even one night was her idea of heaven. Even when they'd rested in hotels and inns, there had been very little time for real rest. The best night she'd had was when she'd first started the journey, when Naruto had healed her. She blushed at that, still not knowing why she'd felt so safe. She tossed her clothes to the floor at the foot of her bed. Oi, shithead-kun, she called, I'm done, so let's get to bed. Alright, he stammered, coming back into the room. His face still held the blush. Sorry, Tsuyu-chan. Forget it, she sighed, sitting on the edge of her bed. When did I start letting him call me Tsuyu-chan? Just knock next time, got it? Yeah, he took off his vest and jacket. You gonna be okay? The air you talkin' about now? She asked. Well, he said, tomorrow is the council meeting to induct you into the village. How are we going to handle that? Tsuyu sniffed. If I know, she said truthfully, think about it, my old boss wasn't the most popular of shinobi, so they might call for my head on a spike for all I know. Naruto growled, over my dead body. Naruto, he looked over at her. She never used his name unless she was either scared or pissed. This time he couldn't tell which. I'm serious here, don't do anything stupid tomorrow. If they have me thrown in jail then so be it. If you do anything, the civilian council will try to have you thrown out of the village. Naruto thought about that while he settled into bed, and gazed up at the ceiling. In Tsunade's message, she told him that he'd been made a clan head on the Shinobi Council for the Namikaze clan, along with being put on the Clan Restoration Act. He knew enough to see that the civilians would never do something like that. It was the Shinobi Council that had made the decision. Could it be Danzo? What are you thinking, Kit? Kurama asked. You know there's nothing you can do if the Shinobi Council votes against her. Naruto smiled at that. Konoha was one of the most powerful shinobi villages in the Land of Fire. It had the Hyuga and Uchiha clans Dujutsu, and it had given birth to the Senju, Uzumaki, and Namikaze clans, three powerful clans that had no Kekkei Genkei of their own, but were feared and respected among all others so much that all three had practically been wiped out. And he was the last Namikaze. If they lost him. I've got an idea, he said, startling both Kurama and Tsuyu. Tomorrow, the council will see just how far I'll go for my friends. Tsuyu sat up and looked over at him, but saw that he'd already closed his eyes and fallen asleep. She smiled as she heard his soft snoring. You big idiot. She then settled back down and quickly fell asleep. The Shinobi Council had gathered early the next morning, all of whom wondering why the Hokage had called them so early. What surprised them was the newly added seat. And its occupant. Naruto Uzumaki, now Namikaze, sat waiting with his arms crossed while Tsunade sat at her desk in the council room. Hiyashi Hyuga was the least surprised out of the older generation, but too smiled as they recognized the young man he had become. Naruto-san. Akira smiled, it's so good to see you again. Naruto smiled at his relative, and rose to shake the man's hand as he moved to take his seat beside Naruto. Good to see you in better shape than when we found you, Naruto said, returning the man's gesture. How is everyone? Fine, and doing better than we have in a decade. Akira smiled, a lot new children have come into the clan, and the older ones have become fine young shinobi. And the seals we know are being incorporated into the training regiments. That's good to hear, Naruto said. Jiraiya can't be the only funinjutsu master around her anymore. Hello, said an irritated Saiga Uchiha, did you forget about me? Naruto chuckled, rubbing his nose. Now how could I forget the person who made me laugh so much after I'd just gotten back to the village? You think that was funny? Saiga paled, remembering the countless times he'd nearly been violated by gaggles of girls when he hadn't been fast enough. Just wait, Naruto, when word gets out that you're part of a powerful clan, you'll be right there beside me, and running for the sake of your chastity. As if I'd let that happen. Tsuyu yelled, making her presence known to all as she sat in the hot seat in the middle of the room. No tramp is going to do that while I'm around. Tsuyu-san. Both Saiga and Akira smiled, then both of them frowned as they realized why they'd been called. Tsunade noticed this and frowned. That's two on her side. But what about the others? The Shinobi Council were all present and accounted for as the clan heads all took their seats. Next came the civilian council, all of whom looked directly at Naruto with displeasure. Lastly came Danzo. The bandaged man gave no emotions away as he took his seat between Koharu Utatane and Homura Mitokado. Tsuyu crossed her arms and legs in annoyance as the slow proceedings of the meeting commenced. She'd never tell anyone, but she was nervous as hell. If they voted against her. Let's begin by welcoming our new council member, Tsunade said cheerfully. Naruto Namikaze Dono, please rise and greet the council please. Naruto did as he was told. Thank you for including me in the council so soon after my clan was re-established, Hokage-sama. Naruto managed to say with a straight face. Tsunade herself managed a small smile as she'd finally gotten a small ounce of respect out of the boy. You are welcomed among us, she said. Now, moving on, our topic for today's meeting is allowing a new shinobi into the village. There were murmurs and grumblings all around the room as they took in the girl in the seat before them. Tsuyu restrained herself from giving many of the civilian council members the finger. She recognized two of them from the day before as the ones that had whispered insults about her and Naruto. One was the man Naruto had slugged after calling her a. The other was an older woman that had sneered at them as they'd passed by her. Then she felt a cold gaze on her, and turned to find Danzo's one eye squinting at her with scrutiny. She shivered, feeling almost like a genjutsu was being cast on her. Naruto noticed this, and he recognized that there was a genjutsu being cast over all the members of the council. Naruto growled, Kurama. I know, Kit, I feel it, too. Someone's trying to control the meeting. Can you dispel it? Damn right I will. Kurama growled, I'm going to put the fear of the saints into whoever's doing this. Naruto grinned as he felt the sheer killing intent leaking out from the fox, and into his chakra network. Kurama's chakra, as little as it was, sent a chill through the room that clashed with the genjutsu that had seeped into the room. Both Saiga and Akira snapped their heads toward the young blonde as they felt the deadly aura coming from him, making both of them cringe away from him. After a moment, the genjutsu was overpowered, and every set of eyes was now trained on the young blonde. Naruto Dono, Tsunade said, her voice low with. Yes, Naruto said, while giving Kurama the go-ahead to shut off the chakra flow. The chill immediately swept out of the room. Please control yourself, she said, and try not to scare anyone. Forgive me, my tenant was feeling frisky. He grinned, earning a few gasps from the civilians. Tenant? Akira asked. Oh, you didn't know. Naruto asked his relative. I am the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Really? Saiga gasped. I thought there was something odd about your chakra signature. I thought so as well, Akira said thoughtfully. This is something. Your mother was the last container, and it was passed to you. Such a legacy. Naruto grinned. It can be useful at time, but he can be a handful when he's trying play a trick on me. Did I really deserve that? You did. Either way, let's get on with the meeting. Naruto said. Right. Tsunade smiled, but please keep the Kyuubi silent, please. I'll try. Naruto grinned, but just to let you know, he gets very agitated when people call me demon brat, or any other insults. This, of course, was directed toward the civilian council. Good. Now let's proceed, Tsunade said cheerily. Tsuyu-san, what can you offer the village? Tsuyu looked up at the blonde woman. I'm a genjutsu specialist, and I use a flute to cast the jutsu. I've also been trained by Jaya the Toad Sage. This raised a few eyebrows among the shinobi. You trained alongside Jiraiya-sama? Koharu asked, drawing the girl's attention. Just what did he teach you? Tsuyu smiled a warm smile she hoped was convincing. I'm fairly good at the Kage Bushin no Jutsu, and I'm practicing water manipulation. Those are fairly high-level jutsu techniques. Homura said, stroking his beard, and the fact that you learned all of this from Jiraiya is quite something. Thank you, sir. Tsuyu said. He was pleased with my progress. I have a question, Danzo said coldly. Where and how did you meet the Toad Sannin? Naruto felt his teeth growing into fangs. This was the question both of them had been dreading. Tsuyu sighed. He found me, trapped under a tree. And, Danzo prompted, what village were you affiliated with? Quote. Otogakur. Everything was silent for a moment as the council seemed to let it all sink in. All of the shinobi in the room didn't seem to have a problem accepting this, but the normal people. You were a bitch from that snake. Kenshi. Tsunade yelled, but it was too late. Naruto's eyes flashed open, became a deadly crimson as Kurama roared in rage inside of him at their friend's insult. The red chakra of the Biju became visible in small streams that rose from Naruto's skin. He looked straight at the frightened villager. Say that again, Kenshi-san. His voice was deeper than usual with Kurama's influence, and I'll tear that disgusting tongue out of your skull. Naruto, calm down, Tsunade commanded, then directed a glare toward the civilians. One more word out of any of you and all of you will be removed. We won't stand idly by while we're threatened by a demon, yelled the man that Naruto had attacked. What reason do we even keep that thing in the village? If you don't like the fact that we have a Jinchuriki in this village, then feel free to leave. Saiga yelled, surprising everyone. The young Uchiha glared at everyone, shinobi and civilian alike. You call him a demon? You haven't seen anything remotely demonic. Even Kaharu and Homura cringed at his glare. I was a prisoner of that snake as you call him, and let me tell you, if Naruto is a demon, then Orochimaru is the devil. Naruto saved me from a fate worse than death, and many others who came to this village by his behest, and now you treat him and his partner as monsters, when you owe them 2 clans. What do you know of it? Kenshi growled, the fox nearly killed everyone. Then blame the beast and not the master. Saiga yelled. I agree with Uchiha-sama, Akira said, standing. I've known 2 Jinchuriki in my life, both of them for the Kyuubi, and neither of them were remotely demonic. Insolent little. Order. Tsunade roared angrily, giving off a wave of malice that put Kurama's earlier display to shame, and had said fox bowing his head in respect to the woman. I've had enough. The reason I called this council meeting was to induct a new shinoi to this village, not so the civilians could form a lynch mob. Anbu. 15 masked shinobi flashed into the room. Escort the civilian council out, Tsunade ordered. They've overstepped their boundaries for the last time. Tsunade Haimai, Danzo began, but was cut off by the blonde's glare. I said enough, she growled. Apparently you all do not take me seriously as the Hokage as of yet. You Danzo, along with the civilian council you are the head of, will no longer be privy to these meetings. You can't do that, Kaharu yelled. You have no right, Homura screeched. Oh don't I? She asked. You elected me as the Hokage, the ruler of this village, and its people. If you wanted to make the laws of this village, then you should have taken the seat yourself. Now get out of here. Tsunade's temper was well beyond the boiling point, and she kicked her desk clear across the room, forcing many shinobi to. Needless to say, the 3 elders quickly exited the room. That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Kurama laughed. I'll never forget the look on that old fart's face. Depends on which one you meant. Naruto snickered. The mummy, the banshee, or the bearded bastard. All 3. Kurama howled. It hadn't taken long for the meeting to end after all of the civilians had been removed. Though some had their doubts, Tayuya was voted in as a Konoha shinobi, 5 votes against 4. Now the pair were in the Hokage's office where Tayuya was receiving her status as a genin of the village, along with her headband. Sakura joined them for a well-earned cup of tea while Tsunade happily chugged down a fresh bottle of sake. Ha! I finally put those jackasses in their places. Ha ha! Naruto laughed nervously as the drunken Sannin celebrated. Ba-chan, maybe you should lighten up a little. I am lightening up, she laughed. This is my favorite way to lighten up. More like boozing it up. He muttered. Suddenly he found himself assaulted, locked in a headlock from the legendary Kunoichi. You say something, Gaki. She growled. No ma'am, not me. Naruto gulped. Tayuya snickered. In all honesty, she wasn't expecting something like this. To be the trigger in ousting an unfair civilian council. Thanks a lot, Tsunade-sama, she said, blushing a bit. You really saved me. Sakura smiled at the girl. Shishio really hates being bossed around, so it worked out well for her. Besides that, you should be thanking Naruto. You're right, Tsuyu grinned, thanks a lot, shithead-kun. Again with the shithead, Naruto growled, if I hadn't dispelled that genjutsu, I would. What genjutsu? Tsunade asked in surprise. I didn't feel anything. I thought I felt something being cast, Tsuyu put in. I thought it was coming from that mummified but I can't be sure. It was really subtle, and hard to trace. Danzo, Tsunade said, thoughtfully. He is a warmonger, and he'd do anything for power. I'll have to keep an eye on him. No kidding, Naruto said, grinning. Kurama was pissed when he felt that genjutsu. I thought he was going to go crazy. You nearly did, Tsuyu grinned. What got under your skin, shithead-kun? Naruto grimaced. Come on, I couldn't let them keep insulting you like that. Sakura giggled. Oh, Naruto's defending a girl's honor, nay. Sakura. Naruto growled. Tsunade-sama. Shizune yelled, bursting into the room. We've just gotten word that Iwa is coming to the Chunin exams. What? The blonde slammed her bottle down. Why are they coming here? I don't know, milady, she said, but this isn't good. If they see Naruto, then they'll try to kill me. Naruto finished. Danzo was left fuming after the fiasco in the council room that morning. If the Jinchuriki hadn't dispelled my genjutsu, I may have been able to take that girl into root. He mused aloud, a loss, but not a serious loss. She may yet prove useful in controlling the Jinchuriki. Tanuki. Sir. A masked root memer said. Keep an eye on them for the time being. If the girl steps out of line, inform me at once, he said. I want Namikaze on my side, whether he chooses to join me, or I force him. Hi, and what shall we do about the visiting cage? Tanuki asked. Nothing. Danzo said, Onoki is an old fool, and he feared the Yondaime, but I do not think he will be much of a problem. Tsuyu stretched her arms out above her head as she and Sakura walked out of the Hokage mansion after Tsunade had finished celebrating with them. The news that Iwa's genin were participating in the Chunin exams had ruined her mood considerably. Naruto had left earlier to have a walk around town to clear out his head, leaving the redhead and Pinkett on their own. Tsuyu-san, be honest, what was it like traveling so long with Naruto? Sakura asked curiously. The thought of being around the blonde knucklehead she used to know for that long actually kind of scared her. Tsuyu sighed as she thought back over it. It was a pain in the most of the time. Sakura giggled, seeing that her fears had been justified. But other times I didn't think I'd be alive if it wasn't for shithead-kun. The pink-haired girl looked a little surprised at that, really. He does seem a little different, but I can still see the old Naruto in there. Tsuyu laughed. If you mean the loudmouth he used to be, then yeah, he's in there. But since I met him he's put on a lot of masks. Masks. Yeah, like hiding what he really wants to do or say, she said, thinking back, like today in the council room. I could tell that the civilians really pissed him off big time and he wanted to slaughter each and every one of them. But he didn't because that's what they want. Sakura looked down at her feet as they walked. It's strange, isn't it? What? Tsuyu asked. That people call him such terrible things when they don't even know him, and he's just the opposite of what they say he is. She said, sadly, you know my mom wanted me to quit as a shinobi once she found out he was one of my teammates. Seriously? Tsuyu growled. What did she think he was gonna do? Eat you? Sakura giggled. Probably. Ah. Tsuyu yelled, startling a few villagers they passed, and making the Pinkett sweat a little. What the s up with people? I mean a kid gets a bad hand in life and it turns into a brand on his face. Tsuyu. Sakura cried, trying to calm the girl. Sorry, Pinky, but this is too much for me to stomach. Tsuyu went on. I mean, he may be a moron, but Naruto's a great friend. He saved my more than once in some really tight spots, and still got the job done. Sakura blushed a little bit at hearing the Tsuyu's ardent defense of the blonde genin. She'd seen him do some incredible things, that was for sure. She smiled, Yeah, he's a real hero in some places. No kidding, Tayuya said, we went to the land of snow on our trip, and you should have seen the reception we got. It was like he was a prince. And the way that damned princess hung around him. Ah, I thought I was back with that pedo Tem. Sakura burst out laughing at the mention of the mission they'd taken back then. Naruto had made real fool out of himself at some points, but then again, his foolishness had won over a princess. She still had the photo she'd given to Sasuke for him. She made a mental note to show to Yuya someday. There was another mission that involved another Kingdom, and that idiot actually hit the prince's son. Sakura laughed. You should have seen the look on his face when Kakashi-sensei tied him up. He told me about that, Tayuya grinned, and that crazy Lee guy. Apparently he still has a lump on his head from his own nunchaku. Sakura laughed louder, being a witness to the lump in question. It always amazed her how tough Lee and Guy were, despite their uniqueness. Saiga, come on, you don't really need me along, do you? Naruto groaned. Yes, I do, Saiga said with a straight face. I have no desire to be molested in the street, Naruto-san. Naruto looked around them, and it was true that a few girls were following after them at a slow pace. Drop the honorific and call me Naruto like the rest of my friends, Saiga. Naruto grinned. I'm not one for politeness, or respectful titles unless I have no choice. That's fine with me, Saiga said. After all those years in a dungeon, my manners aren't all that good either. The two boys grinned at each other, causing a few of the pursuing girls to swoon, having never seen Saiga smile all that often. Isn't that Namikaze-sama with him? One of the girls asked. The blonde one, said another. I think so. My mother said that the new clan head was a blonde with blue eyes, and what blue eyes? The girl sighed. Naruto's cerulean blue eyes normally had that effect on people. Go ask him, a third girl urged. No, you ask him. The first giggled. All the while that the young ladies were discussing Naruto's new status, both boys had overheard them, and were not liking where this was going. Is this how it started? Saiga groaned. Yes, yes it is. Should we run? Saiga asked, starting to sweat a little as the girls started advancing on them. Yes. Saiga-sama, Namikaze-sama. Oh boy, Naruto yelped, and leapt off the ground and onto the rooftops with Saiga close behind him. The girls converged on the spot just under them. Is it always like this? Naruto asked with a deadpan expression. Worse, Saiga said. How's that? Naruto asked. Kunoichi. Naruto started sweating comically. Oh no. Look, there they are. A feminine voice yelled. Both Naruto and Saiga looked to the right, and groaned as a fairly large group of young Kunoichi was heading straight for them. Well, this is bad, Naruto said. I can avoid civilians all day, and even some Anbu, but an entire squad of Kunoichi. Welcome to my world, Saiga sighed, getting to his feet. Better get going if you want to keep your chastity intact. Right. With that, both of them shot off the roof in different directions, effectively splitting the group of female shinobi. Are you kidding? Tayuya laughed. No, it was a full lip lock. Sakura giggled. Though, it was kinda my fault since I bumped the table. Oh, I'm gonna get a lot of mileage out of this. Tayuya laughed, gripping her sides. Poor shithead. I felt bad for Sasuke, too. Sakura muttered, blushing a little. I mean, he was my childhood crush. Ha, I don't care. That's hilarious. Tayuya snorted, wiping a tear from her eye. Just wait till I see him again. Look out below. Wah, both girls said, looking up. Naruto came tumbling off of a rooftop, and barely managed to get his feet back under him before he hit the ground. To Tayuya, the blonde looked more frazzled than he normally did after a long spar with Jiraiya. What's up with you? Naruto looked up at her. Oh, hey, Tayuya-chan, he panted. Saiga's fangirls found out who I was in. Namikaze-sama, come back. Oh no, Naruto groaned, getting back to his feet, then clapped his hands together in the ram seal, henge. A puff of white smoke surrounded him, clearing to reveal a blonde girl with long pigtails. Tsuyu felt her eye twitch. The girl he'd changed into had curves in all the right places, and everywhere she didn't. Not a minute later, a large group of kunoichi and civilian girls came running, leaping onto the street. Naruto kept himself calm in his new form while the girls looked around for their lost target. One of the civilians came up to Naruto and asked, "Excuse me, but did you see Namikaze-sama come by here?" Naruto smiled. "Why yes," he said in a soft feminine voice that had Tsuyu gagging. "I do believe he was running toward the forest of death." The girl paled. "But that's the most dangerous field in the village." "Yes, but I've heard he's been in there before," Naruto said, "so he should be fine. I'm not gonna let that stop me." One of the kunoichi growled, "Come on girls, let's go get him." For the kunoichi it was an easy choice, and the group ran in the direction of the forest. The civilians, however. "I'm going home," one said. "Me too," said another. "That forest is full of monsters." Thankfully for Naruto, the crowd soon dispersed. Naruto let out a sigh of relief and dropped the jutsu. "Thank Kami, that's over." He sighed and sank to the ground. "I'm never gonna doubt Saiga again." Tsuyu blinked along with Sakura, giving the blonde a confused expression. What was that about?" Naruto groaned, looking up at the two girls. "That was the same thing Saiga goes through each day he takes a stroll." Tsuyu blinked again, then burst out laughing. Naruto glared at her. Sakura tried to hold it in, even biting her lip to keep herself in control, but the very thought of girls chasing Naruto around was just wrong. When the pinkett started up, Naruto harumphed and picked himself up. "You can laugh all you want, but how am I supposed to deal with this? If they catch me, they'll rape me." "Oh, sweet Kami," Tsuyu howled, leaning on Sakura to keep her balance. "That's too much." Sakura giggled. Naruto was about to say something until he heard an uproarious cackling laugh that could only be Kurama. "Not you, too. Admit it." Kurama laughed. "You'd laugh your off if this was the situation with Sasuke. I mean, this is priceless. 3 years ago you couldn't even get Sakura to look at you, and now you have half a village of vixens after the honor of being your bitch. Bahahahaha. I have a sudden urge to desert the village." Naruto deadpanned as he listened to the two girls and Fox's laughter. Unknown location. "Leader Sama, you do realize that the Kyuubi no Jinchuriki will present while we go after the Ikibi?" asked a raspy voice. "And there's a chance one of Kumo's Jinchuriki could be there," said a blonde-haired man with a ponytail. "That does not matter," said an almost mechanical voice. "At this time, we need only capture the Ikibi. Once you have him, we can focus on the others. However, if the Nibi interferes, feel free to subdue it as well." "And the Kyuubi?" asked a dark-haired man. "I will see to him myself when the time is right," said the leader. "What about Toby?" "Toby wants to help too," a masked man yelled happily. "Toby," the raspy voice said, "you know you're not a full member yet." "But Sasori-senpai, Toba's a good boy, and always does what you ask." Toby sulked. "Toby wants to be an Akatsuki." "Ah, come on, Leader San," croaked a whispery voice, "give the little guy a break." "Kisame, if you have such high hopes for him," said the leader, "then why don't you partner with him, and find the location of the Sanbi?" "Just find it?" Kisame asked. "That won't be a problem." "Yay!" Toby yelled loudly, making some of the figures wince. "Toby gets to go." "Quiet, you little runt," yelled another. "So help me, I'll make you an offering to Jashin-sama." "No, no, no, Toby is too quick for Hidan-senpai," Toby said, and darted away. "I still can't believe you deal with that on a daily basis," Naruto groaned while he and Saiga caught their breath at a little tea shop Sakura had suggested after the young Uchiha had finally managed to ditch his fangirls. "Believe it," Saiga said, sipping his tea, "I had to deal with right as Tsunade-sama got through with my physical rehabilitation. Then when I had to do special training to become a genin alongside some of the Uzumaki clan members, those dopey girls got in the way just because they wanted to see if I'd make a strong husband." Naruto chuckled. "Sounds like you can have your pick." "As if," Saiga snapped, You really think I want a girl that just fantasizes about being part of a so-called elite shinobi clan? I agree with Saiga-kun, Sakura said, grinning. Naruto cast her a look. Which one you wanna be, the pot or the kettle? Tsuyu snickered while Sora blushed. What's that supposed to mean? Sakura clenched her fist, ready to pummel the young blonde. Just what I said, Sakura, Naruto went on, ignoring the threat. You and Ino chased after Sasuke so much that I thought he'd come to class one day half from being gang-banged by his fan club. We weren't that bad, she said sheepishly, twiddling her thumbs. Naruto smirked. It wasn't until later when we teamed up that you two actually started to connect. Sakura blushed brighter. We did. Sure. I mean beside me and Kakashi-sensei, you were the closest to him. Naruto grinned. Come on, Pinky. Tsuyu growled around mouth full of dango, couldn't you pick some other guy? Sakura huffed. Trust me, I tried. Really? Naruto asked. Then I suppose he'll be left along after we get him back, huh? No, I'm not so sure about that. Sakura sighed. I said I tried, Naruto, but whenever I dated someone else, it just didn't feel right. I even dated Lee a few times. She admitted in slight embarrassment. Naruto's eyes widened. Wow. I always thought Lee wore you out. How wore out? Tsuyu grinned. Sakura glared at her. Not like that. He meant that Rock Lee, aka the Leaf's handsome devil, Saiga sighed, is so full of energy that he would probably make Tsunade-sama pass out in a simple foot race. Saiga, a soft voice called, is that you? Oh, Saiga sat up. Ohayu, Ushio-chan. Naruto and the girls leaned out from their seats as a red-haired girl stepped into the shop. It was clear that this was no doubt one of the Uzumaki clan that Naruto and Tsuyu had helped rescue from the shade of her hair. And if that wasn't enough, she wore the orange Uzumaki symbol on both shoulders of her kimono. She looked a little young than the four of them, and had teal-green eyes a little lighter than Sakura's, which lit up when she spotted Naruto. Itoko, I didn't know you'd come back to the village. Naruto looked a little confused as the girl came to take a seat opposite of him. So, we're cousins. Ushio nodded. Yes, my mother was your mother's third cousin. She looked over at Tsuyu. I'm glad you two are still getting along so well. Why the hell wouldn't we? Tsuyu asked. Well, Ushio sweated. The last time we met you two seemed a little aggravated. Naruto smirked, to which Ushio nodded. That's normal with us. Yeah, Tsuyu grinned. Besides that, I had a bunch of brats hanging off of me. Ushio grinned. So you two are still a couple. Naruto and Tsuyu yelled. Sakura and Saiga sputtered, or snorted into their tea in Saiga's case, and started laughing at the two. What the hell are you laughing at? Again, they spoke in unison, causing further laughter. Saiga-sama. Saiga stiffened, going pale. Oh, no, not again. Namikaze-sama. Naruto groaned. Speaking of aggravation. He brought his hands up and preformed the henge once again. Ushio blushed. The blonde girl he'd transformed into had larger than she did. Tsuyu had a sudden urge to shout out where Naruto actually was. I've got to learn how to do that. Saiga snapped, and hopped behind the counter to down and hide. You mean you can't do a proper henge? Naruto asked in his female voice. Never was any good at it. Saiga hissed from his hiding spot. Ushio nearly giggled. Saiga was terrible with the henge. She'd once seen him try to change into an Anbu once, and nearly died laughing then when he produced a fat, ugly replica in a tanuki mask. But she fell silent as a smaller group of girls peeked into the shop. Naruto smiled and waved at them. They sighed in disappointment from not finding their targets and slunk away. Sakura got up and watched them go. All clear, boys. Thank goodness. Naruto sighed. See how it feels? Saiga asked, popping up from the counter. Tsuyu giggled. Well, look at it this way, shithead-kun, once they see how you eat, they won't ever bother you again. Naruto glared at her, this coming from the girl that burns water. So I can't cook, big deal. She snapped. Ushio sighed, blushing, it must be nice being in love. What's love got to do with this? Both of them asked. The day finally wore Naruto and Tsuyu out so much that they retreated home for th afternoon. Naruto stepped into the study to fiddle with a new fuinjutsu he was working on while Tsuyu decided she wanted to relax a bit, and headed for the onsen. She took a towel from the bathroom, and few clothes she'd yet to wear, and eagerly walked out into the yard to the steaming house. They'd discover that the small bathhouse was built quite professionally, even having a small dressing room to keep their clothes while they bathed. While she undressed, her new Konoha Hitai tumbled out of her pocket. She bent to pick it up, looking at herself in the reflection. Her face was dapper now, but still naturally pale, and she had a healthy glow in her cheeks thanks to a proper diet. HMPH, she stuck her tongue out at the mirror image and set it in a basket along with her fresh clothing. Like anyone would think I'm pretty, she grumbled. She plucked her cap off and tugged her shirt over her head and tossed them down, reaching back around to unclasp her bra, all those girls chasing Shited around melons for tits. The small scrap of lace slid down her shoulders. She shivered, feeling a sharp pang of jealousy. This is so stupid, she said. Why am I feeling like this? She looked down at herself. Truthfully, she'd had a decent few years added onto her body, but she was still unsatisfied with her development. Her stomach was now very well toned, and her arms, though they never lost their slenderness, were now sternog bands of steel thanks to all of Jiraiya's training. Each shoulder now had a Jixiryoku seal on them, making her body heavier and hard to move, depending on how much chakra she focused on them. Her legs were the same, slender, yet powerful, leading up to a set of finely curved hips that she was somewhat proud of. Her chest, however, cups, she moaned, tearing up. All this time, and I'm still small. Naruto groaned angrily. This seal is going to take a lot of chakra. Fuinjutsu of this level usually does, Kit. Kurama said, sighing in defeat. It'll work for what you have planned, but you'll have to use my chakra to perform the jutsu. I know, and that's the problem. Naruto rubbed the bridge of his nose. No offense, Kurama, but I'd rather not break the seal. I know, and none taken. Bah, if you had the key to the seal, then I could freely give you my chakra without having to worry. Next time you see that pervert of a Sennin, ask him again why he won't give it to us. I hate to say it, Naruto said, but he probably still doesn't trust you enough to even consider that. Great, then we'll just have to let him rework the seal a little so that it won't break in the near future. Even I don't know how much chakra is going to be needed for this jutsu. Well, Naruto grinned, looking down at his hand and his handiwork. It is supposed to draw in a biju. Naruto woke to someone shaking his shoulder, looking up to see Tsuyu standing over him in a purple kimono top and her usual black shorts. Wah, he said sleepily. Tsuyu smirked. Come on, you can't sleep here. She looped her arms under his left one and hauled him up. Naruto rose to his feet, swaying slightly as his leap-fogged mind tried to catch up with the situation. Taiyu-chan. Tsuyu giggled. Wow, you're really out of it, nay. She helped him stumble down the hall as he tried to walk. Their room wasn't far from the study. We need to get rested up for the Chunin exams, remember? Yeah, he yawned. Ibiki's stupid test. That's right, Tsuyu said, sliding the door to their room open. We have to meet Tsunade-san tomorrow to talk about our new teammate. Sleepy. Naruto moaned. Tsuyu rolled her eyes, dragging him over to his bed. He was already snoring by the time she made it to the edge. Being smaller than he was, his weight and size unbalanced her as she tried to set him down. The result was her feet slipping, and getting tangled with his, and both of them tumbling to the bed, with Tsuyu getting the wind knocked out of her as the blonde landed on top of her. Gah, Naruto, you're heavy. Tsuyu growled, prodding him. Oi, wake up. She tried to wriggle out from under him. I know you can hear me. Get off me. The only response she got was a soft snore from him. Perfect. Tsunade looked at the boy in front of her, then down at the file that she'd made of him. He was no the skinny, malnourished boy he'd been 3 years ago. His hair was long and shaggy, unkept like most Uchiha would keep their hair. He had the black eyes that all Uchiha had, but they were full of many things that she never saw in the eyes of Fugaku or his son Sasuke. No, this boy's eyes were filled with a strength she'd never seen in any Uchiha. Hope. You understand why I'm a little skeptical about assigning you to their new team? She asked, looking over the boy's figure. You've grown well these past years, and filled out nicely, but you still need some time to recover. I know, Tsunade-sama, but I'd like this chance, Saiga said, smiling. My body's stronger now, and I've still got my training under Orochimaru to use. That's what concerns me the most, she said. His teaching methods are dangerous, sick, and downright disgusting. He taught me ninjutsu and taijutsu skills. Saiga assured her. When he found out that my Sharingan wouldn't activate, he stopped teaching me and lost interest in me. I can understand that, she said. He's wanted the Sharingan for as long as he'd been researching it. Saiga, what I want to know is, can you fight with them? Saiga smiled. You know what I've been through. The drugs are out of my system now, and my body may not be as strong as it should be, but I can fight. Saiga, that's not what I mean, she said. For the last 3 years, despite the female population's attempts, he grimaced at that, you've barely spoken to anyone. Where are your friends? The people you trust? I have friends, he muttered, looking away from her. Saiga, one person does not count, Tsunade sighed. Ushio-chan is a sweet girl, and I'm sure that she's helped you in some ways, but you need to come out of your shell more. Saiga looked down at his feet, a little worried that he wouldn't get the chance to help the 2 people that had rescued him. Tsunade saw his defeated look, and noticed that he actually resembled a young Madara Uchiha, smiling at the fact that the young man couldn't be any different than the long-dead Uchiha. This is one of the reasons I'm putting you with Naruto and Tayuya. Saiga perked up on hearing this. You mean I can try? Yes, you will, she said, grimacing. Besides, the civilian council, even though they know that the chances of activating your dujutsu is a slim chance, think that the experience of the exams will be just the push you need. Saiga ground his teeth. I don't care about that. The Sharingan was the downfall of my clan. No, Saiga, it was their pride and arrogance that destroyed them. Tsunade said, smiling at the boy, something that I don't see in you. Saiga smiled. Thank you, Tsunade-sama. Naruto stretched himself awake, feeling better than he had in ages. He was warm and he was comfortable, which made it hard for him to open his eyes against the rays of sunlight that were streaming through the window. As his eyes opened, they were met with a blob of red that he didn't recognize right away, but his whole body went rigid as the body that belonged to said blob of red snuggled closer to him, burying her head in his chest. Oh, shit, Naruto thought. You said it, Kurama chuckled. Want to know the bad part? There's no way out of this, even if you don't wake her up, where you'll come out of this without a good beating. What the hell are you talking about? Naruto growled mentally. How was this his fault? She was the one that normally crawled into his bed at times, while he stayed in his bed, all night. How did I get into bed? There you go, Kurama said, nodding his head sagely. You fell asleep at your desk last night after working on a seal, and Tayuya came to check on you. So she tried to get you to bed, but ended up tripping and you landed on top of her. Oh no, Naruto moaned, gritting his teeth. Ooh, yes, his tenant cackled, and have you noticed that it's the back of her head she's pressing against her chest? What the hell has that got to do with? Have you noticed where your hand is, Kit? Kurama grinned widely as Naruto blushed tomato red as he realized his right hand was sandwiched between Tayuya's. She moaned when his hand clutched involuntarily, making the boy shake in fear. Now's your chance, Kit. Claim your mate. The fox laughed loudly. Go for the neck. I've always heard that was a particularly sensitive area on females. Could you shut up? In truth, Naruto was having a hard time control himself from leaping out of bed and making a run for it before Tayuya woke up and got her hands on him. But his inner pervert was enjoying every second of the situation. Suddenly the girl shifted and rolled over to face him. Naruto took the chance to slide out of her grasp and out of bed. She moaned at the loss of warmth and reached for him, but he kept himself just out of her reach. Well, Kurama huffed, that was a total waste of a perfect opportunity. You do realize that she's like a sister to me, right? Naruto snapped as he slipped out of the room and down the hall to make breakfast. He felt Kurama sigh inside his seal. Kid, you've got so much to learn. Tayuya's nose twitched when she smelled something that made her mouth water. She opened her eyes, blinking away the blurriness in them and sat up, letting the light blanket fall off of her. She looked over to the side, looking for Naruto and saw her own bed. She blinked a couple of times, then her face turned beet red as she remembered what had happened. Oh, Kami, he saw me, when he woke up. Tayuya stammered, clutching at her face in embarrassment. Shit. She knew that he was never going to let her live this down. Tayuya-chan. Naruto called from the door. Eep. Tayuya brought the blanket up to her chin. Naruto stood there looking a little embarrassed himself, scratching the back of his head and looking away from her. Breakfast is ready, he said somberly. I made your favorite, miso soup and grilled fish. Tayuya looked a little surprised. It was a normal breakfast by anyone's standards, but he only made for her when he was trying to butter her up or apologize. Thanks, she slid out of bed, not looking up, about last night. I'm sorry. She looked up. What? Naruto blushed a little. Kurama told me what you tried to do, and what happened because I wouldn't wake up. I'm sorry for that. Well, I was the one that tried to put you to bed, she said, trying not to stutter. Besides, you were working hard on something, right? Yeah, he smirked. Come on, we should eat before it gets cold. Great, she smiled. I had really up dream, though. About what? Naruto asked as they walked back down the hall. Tayuya shivered. Someone was massaging me. She blushed. It felt so good I thought it was real. The blonde turned pale. About that. Oh. Kurama chuckled. Tsunade was just about to send an Anbu out to retrieve Naruto and Tayuya when she heard a somewhat familiar scream that reminded her of Jiraiya when she'd first caught him peeping on her. A vein popped up on her head. That old pervert must be at the bathhouse again. To anyone whom expected a normal morning in the village, that idea was shattered when a certain blonde shinobi ran screaming from his home with an irate redhead right behind him, aiming a kunai right at his fleeing. I said I was sorry. Naruto yelled as he ran. Not this time. Tayuya howled behind him, you perv. I'm gonna castrate you, and shove your nuts right down your throat. No, wailed Naruto, and the blonde poured on the speed. Get back here, shithead. Tayuya screeched, and hurled her kunai, narrowly missing the fortunate genin. Unfortunately, said kunai sailed past him, and sliced right through a stick of dango just as Anko was coming out of the shop. Anko went blue in the face when she found her favorite treat lying on the ground while she still clutched half of the stick. She saw the offending assailant embedded in the doorway by her head, then caught sight of the fleeing blonde as he raced past her at speeds that would make an Anbu jealous. Hi, Anko, bye Anko. Naruto gasped as he ran by. Naruto, what the? Anko started angrily until a whirlwind of red and purple shot by her in pursuit of the young genin. Come back here you perv. Tayuya yelled. Is going on? Anko finished in a slight daze. Then she heard a snickering from above her, looking up to see a familiar masked Anbu gazing after the pair. You have to admit, Anko-chan, Inu said, things have been kinda dull without him around, nay. Kakashi, Anko said sweetly, making the masked shinobi sweat drop. Why yeah, he asked. You owe me an order of dango. Ah. Kakashi had seen Anko in action when it came to dango. On her own Ryo, she could go for 10 sticks, but when someone else was paying. I have a meeting with Tsunade-sama regarding the Chunin exams. Maybe later. He shushined away. Anko pouted. Coward. 15 minutes of chaos later. So that was you I heard this morning. Tsunade growled under her breath as she took in the state of the two genin and jonin in front of her. Naruto, to his relief, was still a healthy male, despite Tayuya's threat, but she had taken a fair bit frustration out on him. His shinobi vest would need mending in places, and he now sported a puffed up right cheek, as well as a brilliant black eye on the left. Tsuyu, of course, was fine, though her clothes were slightly out of place thanks to a little scuffle she'd had with one dog-masked Anbu, who had lost half of his mask, revealing his silver hair and mask that obscured the lower half of his face. The one-eyed Jonin looked more harassed than anything as he too sported a black eye, though his was covered by his Hitai-8. One day, the Hokage spoke, barely one full day back in the village, Naruto, and you've caused no end of trouble. I accept full responsibility. He bowed low at the hips. This mess was entirely my fault. This surprised her a little. Normally the young knucklehead would be rambling on and on how it wasn't his fault. Which made her wonder just what in hell's name had happened. Tsuyu looked shocked herself. But I attacked him, she thought guiltily. It was partially my fault as well, Tsunade-san. Tsunade raised an eyebrow at her. Explain. Both of them blushed, and neither one of them said anything. I take it this was a domestic dispute? Kakashi asked, I smiling at them when they nodded. Naruto, we're both happy to have you back in the village, but please keep the lovers' quarrels at home. It wasn't a lovers' quarrel. Both teens shouted. Tsunade and Kakashi both smiled. The two resembled Minato and Kushina so much it was frightening. Anyway, she said, down to business. The written exams start this afternoon, and you still need a third teammate. Yeah, but who? Naruto asked, his black eye now gone thanks to Kurama, though the wily old fox was not about to let him forget the little beating he'd taken, Sakura. Naruto, Kakashi sighed, no one except you is still a genin from the rookie 9. Gay. Naruto blanched, even bushy brow. He passed last year, Tsunade said, laughing as the blonde fell to the floor comically. Then who? Tsuyu asked, ignoring her friend's antics. Tsunade smiled, you can come in now. Naruto looked up from where he was weeping and turned to the door. Tsuyu turned as well, hoping for a decent partner. But the young man that walked in surprised them both. Morning you two. Saiga smiled. Saiga. Naruto grinned. You're the new team member. Tsuyu smirked, arching her eyebrow. Now that hurts, the young Uchiha said, feigning injury, I thought you'd be happy to have me on the team. We are, Naruto said happily, she's just being a what? Tsuyu asked, crossing her arms and giving the blonde a look. Nothing. He said, not wanting another black eye, or worse. That's what I thought. She smirked. Hee, you two never cease to amuse me. Kurama chuckled, making Naruto groan. Well, Tsunade smiled happily, I already have the documents for the new team written up, so you three need to get over to the academy so you can take the test this afternoon, but it won't hurt to get there early. Agreed, Kakashi said, it'll give you 3 time to get to know each other better before the second exam. Sure, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto smiled, maybe we can catch up later over a bowl of ramen. Sounds good, said the one-eyed Jonin, looking over the 3 genin, I'd like to hear about your training trip when you have the time. Why? Tsuyu asked, it was mainly shithead-kun being a moron. Oi, Naruto growled, much to Kakashi's amusement. He'd walked right into it, as always. That was unexpected, Saiga muttered hours later as they walked toward their next destination, does Anko-san always make an entrance like that? No, the single on the banner was new, Naruto said, but it could have been worse. At least she didn't cut me again. Again, Saiga's eye widened. Yeah, Tsuyu shivered, when I first met that crazy bitch, she threw a toothpick at him and sliced his cheek, then she grabbed hold of him so she could lick the blood off. Blech, Saiga shivered, and I thought Kabuto was weird. He is, Naruto and Tsuyu chorused. Naruto found it a little nostalgic to be standing in front of the gates again. The forest seemed to be thicker than it had been all those years ago, but then it had been 3 years. Tsuyu looked a little uneasy. To her, the forest seemed more dangerous than any predator she had come across. Saiga's attention, however, was not on the looming forest. It was on 3 other teams that were giving his blonde companion far too much attention. Naruto, I think we're going to have trouble when we get in there. You mean those 3 Iowa squads? Naruto whispered, catching Tayuya's attention. Saiga nodded. Don't worry about them for now. We'll need to get ahead of them and keep watch in case they decide to take a shot at us. Oi, shithead-kun, don't even think about it. Tayuya growled, you're not pulling that stunt again. Naruto looked down at her. It may be the only chance we have for you to cast a genjutsu over them, or for any of us to take them down. Saiga was lost. What are you two talking about? Tayuya kept her glare on the blonde. He's planning to use himself as bait. What? Saiga hissed. No way, Naruto, I don't care how strong you are, there are 9 of them. So, Naruto gave a foxy grin, with my cage bushins, I'm a one-man army if I need it. They are Iowa nins. Tayuya scowled, you're at a huge disadvantage. Saiga narrowed his eyes, he's a futon user. Naruto grinned sheepishly, yup, it's my best jutsu besides my bushins. Saiga thought for a moment, I can't handle them if it comes to a fight. During my rehabilitation, Kakushi-sensei helped me learn a few Raiden jutsu. That should help us if they come after you. That's something, Tayuya said, if I can get them with my genjutsu, they're all dead for sure. Alright, Gakis, Anko yelled, behind the screen and get your scrolls. Naruto and his new team stepped up. When their turn came, they were given a heaven scroll, which he gave to Tayuya to keep. Why do I have to hold it? She snapped. Because, Naruto said in a low voice, if Iowa does come after me, I'd rather not be the one holding the scroll. I'm not gonna let those rockheads get anywhere near you. She yelled, getting right up in his face. Tell me, how is it right to hate someone for what their dad did? Saiga growled, the same reason that people can blame someone for what they carry inside them. Naruto sighed, knowing that he was referring to all Jinchuriki. You'll be going to Gate 6, said the Chunin that had passed them the scroll. Wait there for Anko-san's signal. Naruto nodded. Taking the role as the team leader, Naruto led them toward the gate. He noticed that the 3 Iowa teams kept their eyes trained on him, giving him death glares all the while. Naruto did the only thing that came to mind, he smiled and waved at them cheerfully. Each team was a standard set, composing of 2 male and 1 female. The effect he had on the boys in the team was less than desired. All 6 of them growled around their teeth. The girls were a different story as each one of them blushed and refused to look at him. Saiga snickered, you little devil. He elbowed him in the ribs lightly. Trying to find yourself a girl to rock your world. Tayuya felt her eye twitch. No flirting with the enemy. She hissed at them. I'm not flirting, Saiga smirked, Naruto is. I'm not. Naruto snapped, blushing. Oh, I don't know, Kit. Kurama laughed, I can smell that one of them definitely had a thing for you. Not helping. They reached their gate and waited. Tayuya listened to the sounds coming from behind the gate nervously. What can we expect in there? Naruto looked down at her, giving her a bump with his shoulder. Anything and everything, Tayuya-chan. There are snakes in there almost as big as summons. And a lot more. Saiga gulped. Not sure I like the sound of that. A horn blared and the gates opened wide. Let's go. Naruto shouted, and ran inside the gate with his 2 friends close behind him. Tayuya-chan, you take middle, Saiga, take the rear guard. Right. Both said. They took to the trees, leaping from one huge branch to the next. Naruto kept his eyes and ears open as the wind whipped by them. He could already hear screams coming from all around him. The Chunin exams had really started now. What's the plan? Tayuya asked, coming up beside him. For now, Naruto said, first we need to find a place and hunker down so we can think things through. We have not only Iowa, Suna and Kumo to worry about, now. Some Konoha nins wouldn't think twice about taking us on to get a scroll. He's right, Saiga said from the rear, the last 3 years have been brutal for the Chunin exams. Iowa in particular. Ever since we came to the village and Danzo-sama announced the rebirth of your clan, Iowa has been either baying for blood, or trying to force a political marriage with your clan. What? Naruto unfortunately was so shocked at this bit of news that he failed to watch where he was going, and slammed headlong into a large branch. He went tumbling to the ground as Saiga and Tayuya dropped after him. Was that so surprising? Saiga asked, looking down at his fallen friend. I think I wanna go back to being an Uzumaki, groaned Naruto, his eyes spinning dizzily. Tayuya didn't think it was funny either, remembering how two of the Iowa girls had looked at her friend, making her a little sick to her stomach. She cracked her knuckles loudly, looks like I get to let loose on some Iowa bitches. The two boys shrunk away from her in slight fear. Naruto hopped to his feet, then knelt back down to send some of his chakra into the soil. Immediately his senses were flooded with chakra signatures. Many were already far ahead of them, already clustered together in battle. What caught his attention was three small individual signatures that had broken off from the fray, and were circling back around, behind them. Naruto snapped his eyes open and looked up at his teammates. We've got trouble, he said, looking at them both. It looks like a team's heading this way. So what will we do? Saiga asked. Fight them and search for the scroll we need. Moron, Tayuya growled, that'll attract too much attention. We need to ambush them. Naruto thought for a moment. Alright, Tayuya-chan, we'll go with your plan. When they get close enough, place them under a sleeping genjutsu. I don't want any deaths on our hands with Onoki coming around for the exams. He turned to Saiga. I'd like you to be my backup. If it comes to a fight, I want you right there with me. Tayuya, if you get another chance, don't hesitate to hit them with a more powerful jutsu, just try not to catch us in it. Just plug your ears when you hear me start up, she smiled, or you'll be under the impression of getting ed by Orochimaru. Saiga paled along with Naruto. You wouldn't really. That's the worst thing I can think of for a low-level genjutsu. She smiled sweetly. Now let's get this party started.